The sun-baked crags of the Wildspire Wastes. Located at the very center of the wastes, these rocky plateaus have little room for roots to dig very deep, and at the hottest point of the day, temperatures can easily reach over 40 degrees Celsius. It might come as a surprise then, that the area is home to a plethora of plant and animal life. A diverse ecosystem that rivals the more verdant biomes of the New World. Its gardener sleeps within the mudflats just south of the delta. Here the flow of water is much slower, and the mud is soft and deep. It's an ideal place for vespoids to mill about and gather materials for their hives. So as long as they don't bother its other resident. The landslide wyvern, Barroth. It begins each day with a stroll across the delta to the waste's center. The mud that it spent the night sleeping in has settled within the crevices of his rocky hide, covering it like an armor. To it, the mud acts as a layer of protection from the sun, and as a way to mark its own territory. But to the plants and fungi that live on the rocky crags, the Brute Wyvern brings much needed nutrients and soft soil. The Barroth, however, doesn't work for free, and the desert isn't so cruel as to not reward its vital work. Each of these spires in the sandy dunes is a food trove containing hundreds of carrier ants. And it is from these spires that the Barroth will claim its due. Using its powerful jaws, it breaks open the spires and eats the ants that live within it, rock and all. Doing so keeps ant populations controlled and their spires a manageable height, lest they grow too big to take a bite out of. The Barroth's patrol through the Wildspire Waste is crucial for maintaining the health of the ecosystem, and many have become dependent on them for their survival. This Beetle, for instance, is waiting for the Barroth to make a stop here. But unlike the others, it's not waiting for a fertile deposit of mud. It's instead waiting for a deposit of a different kind. The aptly named Dung beetle relies on Barroth droppings to create a nest ball for its eggs. They spend most of their life underground, and only emerge as adults that are ready to start the next generation of dung rollers. It's a long and slow journey out in the open where they are vulnerable, but the eye spots on their abdomen provide the misdirection they need to survive in the case of an attack. Dung beetles usually bury their brood ball near other vegetation, where it acts as a temporary fertilizer for the plants that are growing nearby. When the eggs hatch, the larvae will use the dung for food, then start to feed on the nearby roots for sustenance, until they themselves are ready to brave the outside world to pass their genes. As the Barroth uses and shakes off its muddy armor, it too starts to lose its protection from the heat of the Wildspire Wastes. To avoid the risk of overheating, it will need to cool down and pad more mud onto itself. And while rolling around in the delta's water is a good way to do so, doing so here can be dangerous, as he's disturbing another's hunting grounds. A Duratotus ambushes the unsuspecting Barroth from below with killing intent. Covered in mucus, the mudfish wyvern coils around the Barroth to throw it off balance and restrict its movement. But the Brute Wyvern manages to get back on its feet despite the massive weight around its body. If the Barroth is to have any chance of survival, it must find a way to shake the Duratotus off. In the moment of life and death, the Barroth gets its second wind and violently tosses the Piscine Wyvern aside, saving its own life. Battered, exhausted, but alive, this Barroth will go to live another day, bringing life to the crags of the Wildspire Wastes.